Hello and welcome back to the Court Sense podcast. It's not every day you can be joined by the winningest player in the history of a Division I basketball program, but sometimes you get lucky that way. Mike Thomas was a consummate captain and stood the test of time in ways that no one had before. 5 full seasons in Manoa spanning 3 head coaches, an NCAA investigation, and an NCAA tournament. He was the Rock in the eye of the storm. He was actively a part of 87 wins. That's more than 22 wins per season, a staggering average for a program that's only hit the 20 mark in 10 seasons during the modern era. That's since the 1970s. In the years since he left UH and got a glance in the G League, Mike has become a busy man post-hoops, with demands on a few fronts: an athletic training day job, a gig as a basketball skills developer, and nighttime spent on a burgeoning music career. Please bear with some of the audio for the first half of the pod. It gets better, I promise. And now, here's Mike Thomas. Check out Mike and Kara at No Ka'oi Automotive in Kalihi for all your vehicle repairs and maintenance needs. Quick turnaround, affordable, honest, and ASE certified. Call or text 842-6453 to schedule an appointment today. That's 842-MIKE, or email nokaoiauto@gmail.com. The best part? Mention the Court Sense podcast for a 10% discount. All right, Mike Thomas, the foreman on the Incredibos NCAA tournament team of 5 years ago now. Mike Thomas joins the Court Sense podcast. Mike, first off, can you believe it has been 5 full years since that magical season?
Yeah, you just said that out loud. It kind of shocked me a little bit. That's wild. Yeah, it's crazy that it's been 5 years. I'm just glad to have a group of guys that still connected to in some ways stronger than other, in some ways a little more mild, but just grateful for that experience. Yeah, that's wild. It was 5 years ago.
How frequently have you seen, your cohorts from that team, the Nico Filipoviches, the Stefan Jankoviches, the Roderick Bobbits, all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I see I remember when I was driving through the Bay maybe 2 years ago, I saw Rod, and it was random. Like, we were both in Union Square at the same time, and then got to hang out and link up later. I should have connected with them more, but we all play in a fantasy football league, if I'm being honest. So we all still get to connect and communicate through that yearly. And then guys like Nico, I still see. Eran, I'm about to start playing pickup basketball with here and there. And so still trying to stay connected here with a lot of the guys. Got to see Sites and Mullen not too long ago. But yeah, it's still well. We're all very cool, very good. So yeah.
Well, that's great to hear. Mike, you yourself made it out to the islands last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? You were the honorary game captain for, you'll have to remind me which specific game that was, but you were out here. What was it like being back? And there were, by the way, still fans in the stands at that time, as strange as that sounds right now.
And it was awesome. I got to see UH versus Maine, I believe, at one point right before the New Year. And then after the New Year, I got to see the UC Davis game where Eddie Stansbury hit that game winner. And I thought that was it was just unreal to be in the arena at that time too. But yeah, I'm actually going back in March, a month from now, for a friend's wedding. But yeah, just being in that environment, having fans in there again, and not having to be the performer was something different. Being able to enjoy it and lose myself in the game as well, just as a fan and a spectator, was really cool.
How do you think you would handle not having anyone to, at least in person, perform for in that kind of setting?
I think I'd have a lot of fun, honestly. I think it makes it more of a pickup setting. And I know I've always been a guy who, does a lot for the team and stuff like that. But in a lot of pickup settings, when you start feeling that nature every time you go out there and play, you tend to play a lot more loose. And so I think I would have done pretty well. But yeah, obviously it's not as fun as having the fans there, but it definitely can make some guys better than normal, and can make some guys honestly worse than normal too.
Mike, I mean, you are one of the longest tenured guys ever to put on a Rainbow Warrior uniform. You are actually the winningest player, 87 W's you were a part of spanning your freshman year in 2013-14 all the way through that, through that tournament year. Then you took a redshirt year, and then you had your senior year. It was basically half of the entire time I was the beat writer for UH men's basketball. You may have set the record for interview appearances, just me personally speaking. So belated thank you for that, for making yourself available. And now, Mike Thomas, you are in high demand on a few different fronts. So let's talk about that, like what you've been up to. I mean, you've got the athletic training company that you've been a part of, I know, almost since the time that you finished at UH, right? You're more recently been doing some music producing. It's all over your Instagram page. And my understanding is you also do some skills development with youth players in your area, in the greater LA area. So how do you delegate your time?
Yeah, definitely priority based. I do have a boss, a very generous boss during this time. And so just making sure that I'm handling all my responsibilities for athletic gains, and making sure that I'm taking care of all of our clients and athletes on that front first, as well as our new trainers and different guys that we're starting to develop on the employee side too. But that's been, I mean, athletic games has been a world of fun, as well as just a learning experience, teach me how to grow up, honestly, and handle different clientele, work with different types of people, be a personable person to any type of person that's in front of me, and really try to strive for success. There's a lot of different incentives and initiatives that we work through that just make you more of not just a good trainer, but more of a well-faceted business person and an entrepreneur in that sense. And so I've been very, very grateful for that. The second goes to my skill development and working with a ton of kids on the court, making sure I have a group of kids maybe from ages 11 up to 22, whether they be in middle school, high school, college, even some professionals that have come to me. And we just work a lot on fundamental skills, but advancing it, and especially with the tie-in from my athletic gains work, there's certain things that we can do now that are a little more advanced than just what most people would think are the fundamentals. You kind of develop a certain professional fundamentals in a basketball sense, which has been a lot of fun too. And seeing guys progress in that way is one of my favorite things in the world when it finally clicks as a hooper and as a player. And definitely working with a lot of guys on reads and different stuff like that too. I'll break down film, and it's a very full-faceted business, if I can say that, for my skill development. And then lastly, the music. The music is what gets my night times in some early mornings. But it's definitely a passion deal right now, and I never, I can never call that work, if I'm being honest, just because there's so much art and creativity going into it, so many different personalities, so many different artistic styles that I deal with. And I've been able to get on the production side a ton for artists like Brock, artists like my little brother, artists like Miles, a couple guys that we've met through basketball actually that wanted to go full-time into music, as well as new people out in the Valley in Los Angeles that I've been able to connect with and work on projects with and for. Going forward, I've done engineering as well for that too, as well as being my own artist in a sense, and perfecting my sound and trying to come out with just more music that feels genuine to me, and that I can kind of relate to other people in the world and in the space around me. I know a lot of people can have the dreams of wanting to get rich and famous and all that different stuff. I think having the basketball background that I did and playing at the level that we did and getting that exposure kind of took care of that need for me. And so right now it's really just perfecting a craft and not devoting time to where I feel like I have to do anything for it, but just wanting to grow and learn and continue to get better in that nature as well too. Whatever comes from that may come from that, but I definitely have a ton of fun with the production and music side too.
No, you can hear the passion when you talk about, I mean, all three of those things, but what does that leave time for otherwise if you're not talking about or doing one of those three things?
Man, I definitely I still kept the same roots, man. I make God the center of my day, and so I don't start any or do any of those things without understanding that my relationship with Him goes first, and making that primary to my life, and just kind of bringing me back to base. A lot of times you get caught up in the runaround so much that you forget your purpose. In a sense, you can be doing so many things that aren't bringing you that same gratitude that does for me, I should say. And so definitely just my spiritual life, church life, if you will, making sure I'm on top of that and constantly pouring into that just as much or even more than I am with the other stuff. But I am recently dating as well too, so making time for my girlfriend and just making sure I'm emotionally physically available for her. And honestly, yeah. Other than that, I'm pretty locked. It's been a very busy COVID year. But
Yeah, well, everyone else is kind of just sitting on the couch waiting for this thing to play out. You're out there making moves. I like it. Um, did you have the feeling, by the end of your University of Hawaii career and your 5 years out there, like I said, that life would take you this direction? I mean, I think you took a little bit of a stab at the G League, right? You did a tryout or two.
yeah.
How much thought was there, Mike, that you would continue playing basketball overseas, if not here domestically in the States?
Yeah, I think it was tough, man. I really enjoyed my time in the G League. I feel like I learned a ton and was just competing a ton and growing into a player that I had never seen myself be before, if I'm being honest. Just being that type of professional and taking care of business in that nature, it was very interesting how easy that setting can cultivate a lot of that. I think when you get to school and everything, there can be distractions. There can be a lot of just different things in your face, and the good and bad. And I think being able to go out there and do that was it just showed me a ton about the game. But I felt like there were people around me that I felt were pouring more into the game, and I think I was developing more personal assets outside of it. And for me, I'm somebody when it comes to basketball, I'm somebody who is always going to respect the reason why people are playing. And I felt like at a certain point, I got very excited about the idea of playing professionally and making a lot of money. And for me, I know some people can think that way too, and it works out for them, but I just didn't feel conscious-wise, I didn't feel clear playing basketball for that reason. And there was, plenty of opportunities to play overseas and continue my career. And even I got reached out by the Rockets after I left the Utah Jazz's organization for their G League team as well. And something couldn't bring me to it. I just felt like there were other people that were very deserving because they had put their heart and soul into the game at that level. And there were other things that I could do. I think I went to school, I got my degree. And so even if the beginning of not playing is difficult, I knew that at the end of the day, I could make something work of it. And there's other passions that I wanted to get into. A lot of people don't realize when you play at that level, and we're not like Hawaii, we're not a high major Division I, but it's getting to a high level. Like not many people can say that they play Division I basketball, right? And so doing that, you have to dedicate 20 years of your early life to playing basketball, and that's already a 20-year career if you take it as seriously as you're supposed to. And so I just felt drained by that in a sense. But I think what's crazy is opportunity just kept presenting itself. I was able to get not so much an overtime. We actually had an NBA official tryout because of just how the rules were set up. We had to be in there, so it was 4 of us, and I got to actually work out in front of Donovan Mitchell. And he came and spoke to us. Yeah, he came and spoke to us afterwards. He was like, "Man, I really love you guys' games. Like, I respect the hustle and the grind of you guys putting in work and having to fly out to cities and do all this different stuff. Man, it's not easy not knowing what opportunity is going to come forward." And I think that kind of resonated with me and thinking like, and there's not everybody doing this. And I think, not taking for granted, but just you don't understand it when you're in the middle of it. You're stressing about playing perfect and doing all these different things. And I just felt, my G League experience was amazing, even as short as it was. But I just felt drained, I think, by the amount of time I put into the game and the injuries. I messed up my shooting wrist while I was in camp. And so it kind of hindered me. I was starting to shoot it very well. And just that kind of set me back, I think, a lot in the coach's eyes. Couldn't do a lot from that nature. But
it's tough timing.
It was. But it was a great experience. And you obviously grieve those things. You grieve your career and what's happening. But it opened a lot of doors. And I think even for my career right now, it brought a lot of respect, understanding that I played at that level, even if it was the G League. A lot of my athletes can relate and respect and trust that I'm coming from a place that knows their best interest and knows what they're going through. And so I'm grateful for all of it.
Nice. Had you given that a thought? I mean, doing skills development and, athletic training while you were a player?
Honestly, no. My best friend had a training business. He's working with Athletic Games with me right now. He's manages actually all of the locations along with Chevelle. And he had his own business back then, and we kind of got absorbed in a sense by athletic games. But I really wanted to just go in with him however he needed me to help. I was willing to add more of a business touch, a little more of a officiality to it, and eventually be a trainer if I needed to for a lot of the kids. But I kind of stepped in just needing money early on, and understanding my understanding of the game was just a little more advanced than the people around me. I was watching and could see different workouts happening, and was actually shocked at some of the things I would see when I would go to the gym with just other trainers and stuff. And I remember the first kid I started training, my friend James put me on to. He was like 13, averaging like 12 points in his ARC league, which is like a little AAU league out here in LA. And we trained for maybe 2 months, and he averaged like 30 points in a tournament after like his first tournament after we had started training. I was like, okay, like there's some proof in the pudding here. And just understanding the confidence you have to give a lot of these young kids. It can't just be drill sergeant nature. At a certain point, you have to let them know that there is an opportunity for them to flourish, and that I think everybody is growing up saying, everybody grows up and people around them are saying only this certain amount of people go to the NBA, but it's because of the mentality and the work ethic. And so if you can kind of instill that into a lot of these kids, you never know what can happen from that. And it's kind of flourished from there. I've been able to go by word of mouth, and obviously with COVID, it's been restricted, and I have to do a lot more, I think, from a work standpoint, but it's definitely worth it. So I didn't really see training right away. I didn't see coaching or anything like that in my future, but it fell in my lap, and I had to take advantage of it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, speaking of, coaching and different coaches, you are one of the guys who stuck with it through the thick and thin of 2 different Division I head coaching changes during a single career in a single place. I don't know how many guys can say that, because yeah, sure, coaches change, but I mean, there's attrition, players leave as well. I mean, you and so many of your teammates stuck it out from, the Gib Arnold era, Gib Arnold, who recruited you, of course, to Benjy Taylor when that whole NCAA saga was playing out. And then Coach Ganot takes over just prior to that NCAA tournament year. I believe on the pregame show that you went on 14-20 with me and Gary Dickman, you said when I asked you that then, you have to be like water. And, how can you speak a little more to that, and like just the kind of, adjustments of your own expectations, of their expectations for you that, you played through, that you sat through along the way?
Yeah, it was, I think Gib personally recruited me. And so having that confidence to the coach and understanding that my time will come, I was able to play a little more free. I started working my way as my sophomore year was happening. I was working my way into not a 6-man role because we had some players on that team, but a guy who could come in and make a lot of different types of plays. And I was given that freedom with Gib. And so that gave me the opportunity, honestly, to shoot a lot more, to be a little more aggressive. If I knew Fotu was down there, throw it in right away, little stuff like that.
Right here might cut off a little bit, but then he goes into transitioning to the Benjy Taylor era and some of the challenges that team faced.
We can be defensively liable sometimes against smaller teams whenever we play super big, which we had. We had the size, but definitely the speed was a little tougher at times. And so just being able to defend as much as I could and make plays, take charges, and all that different stuff is what really happened under Benjy. And then whenever my opportunities came, it was more finish every go you had. I think a lot of, and then with Ganot, it was more be a leader. So in that change, it was like, all right, how much are you in the gym? What are you doing with your extra time? How much am I communicating to the coaching staff? How much am I communicating to my teammates about what our goals are, what we need to get done? And little things like that made it to where my skill level had to catch up to my leadership level, if that makes sense. And so just constantly being on top of things, stuff like that, that kind of made the professional turn for me, I think. But I'll say all 3 of them are great coaches. They're very different coaches, all 3 of them. I think Benjy was a little more like laxed and gave us a lot of freedom, but it helped us play loose. And when we got out there, we knew we were going to compete and we were going to go hard. I think with Gib, we had structure in place, and there was an aura that we had, a certain pride or nature that we had about us that was a little different. We knew we weren't going to lose a lot of nights because we had that. And I think with Ganot, the structure and the ability to execute and be just on top of ourselves as individuals changed how we approach the game and how we approach the team and that mentality. So they all 3 made me better, if I'm being real. I know there's always whatever people are going to say, whatever they want to say behind closed doors. But yeah, I think they may be better.
No, well said. And I think that that summed up pretty well some of the impressions I had from those three coaches respectively and the teams they led in their own different ways for sure. And I remember going to observe a beach workout that the Gib was putting on for his guys in the off season. I guess it was preseason at that point. They were ramping up to regular practice, and there's this wiry kid sitting on the stone wall fronting the beach out at Queens Beach there in Waikiki. It was one Mike Thomas, and you come across a lot of prospective recruits in the sports writer game, from one year or another. But I will remember encountering that wiry kid sitting on the wall out there, and yeah, I had no idea that you would end up becoming this 3-year team captain, something that not too many guys have that kind of responsibility. And team leader Ganot called you the Rock. It's honestly pretty cool watching you transform into the leader you became over that what felt like a pretty long span of time. I don't know how quick it felt to you, Mike. Can you describe, I guess, that that journey that you underwent over that half a decade span of time that you spent out here on the islands, and how much maybe you changed from that wiry kid who first appeared to the guy you left as?
Yeah, I think it's about 5 years was full of ups and downs. You constantly, it's tough. I don't want to disrespect the conference, right? But you constantly look at the conference and say like this it has to be us every single year, and so it creates this certain. I think there was an entitlement when you first get to the island. Like, man, like I'm looking at the guys around me, especially my freshman and sophomore year. I'm like, look, I'm looking around like, yo, we should not lose a game, like at all. Then you take a couple and you're like, these teams play hard, they shoot well, they do different things and all this different stuff. And I think just as much as I'm talking about basketball, the same thing applied to like life out there. You come, it seems unassuming, and then you encounter your first experience with the locals. And it might be like the good set of locals, or there might be the ones that don't want you around where you're around and stuff. And just honestly, not judging a book by its cover. I think when I first went there and understanding everything was earned, especially in college. We had to really grind through some years. Like sometimes I regret the fact that like Fotu wasn't on the team that went to the tournament. Just the type of player he was, the type of guy he was, different stuff like that. You think about certain things like you're like, how did this work with this? You know what I mean? But this didn't work. And I think just not I don't know how to say this. Not taking the actual substance out of what the work produces, if that makes sense. Going to class, like all those little things about like being late, guys being late to class and guys missing class, and all those things count. Like they actually matter. And you'll realize when you get to your senior credits and you need your capstone, and all those little things that you missed along the way are exactly what you needed in the final days of getting your degree. And I don't know, the type of person that college can change you into, especially being in Hawaii, it's you just have to be on top of yourself. I think in such a relaxed place, you have to maintain that work ethic and maintain who you are. I think at the end of the day, for at least for me, I think the kid who arrived was expecting the world. And the guy that left understood what it took to get to that place, and actually who he was at the end of that. I don't think I knew who I was when I was going into college. Just on a personal level, spiritual level, basketball-wise, all those different things. You just have this vision of yourself and where your life is supposed to go, and what you're supposed to do. And then people come along and change little courses of that, and events, and yourself, and all these different. I came to a lot of different. I would say places where it's like, okay, if I want to live my life this way, then this is what I have to do here. But if I don't, then I have to sacrifice this. You know what I mean? And so just understanding those things, it changed a lot for me and changed what I care about going forward into my life now. Because, I mean, those 4 years really paved the way for the next 40. And I didn't believe that, but that is very true. And so, yeah.
Well, Mike, you probably have a grasp on how rare it is that one guy stays in one program for 5 years, let alone 4, and like all those coaching changes in between, like I mentioned. When it came time after that NCAA tournament season, you just had a great game against Maryland in a losing effort there. It was a valiant effort on your guys' part after you knocked off Cal, of course. the fifth seeded Terrapins. They had a very talented front line that you went up and up with pretty much the whole way. When it came time after that season, a lot of guys had a decision to make, right? And AV decided to go pro. Rod, of course, was eligibility was done, but Janks decided to go pro. Jovanovic transfers to LMU. Nico calls it a career for playing wise, at least. And you were the guy who stayed on that team. You were the guy who, it was almost like in capital letters, the guy who stayed, Mike Thomas. I mean, that was like your, part of your legacy as a UH player. Can you just kind of take me back to that time and talk about what went into that?
Yeah, man, loyalty plays a big piece. It's crazy, man. Like because I had thought about leaving after my sophomore year, after the whole Benjy situation. We found out he wasn't going to get hired, and we didn't know who the coach was going to be. So my mind was already set. Like, okay, cool. I kind of started for a bit of this year. I got some film out there at least. People can see what I can do. I shot it from mid range pretty well. I'm thinking all these things, and I sit down with Ganot, and he's like, what do you think about being a leader of my team? And I was like, well, okay, this might be different. And so I think for somebody to see, because if you saw my sophomore year, I played for the first 14 games and didn't do that bad. I did all right. I did solid for myself. And then my minutes just kind of dropped. And it was per circumstance and stuff like that. And I understand all of that. That's what goes into basketball. But for somebody to see that and then say, okay, we need this guy as a piece, understanding that that whole same team is coming back. And to place me into that, it just struck me, if I'm being honest. And so going into my decision to stay, I just felt the same way. I was like, well, who's gonna be the leader of this team? Like there's no guarantees when you leave, especially in the situation we had. There was the whole sanction deal and all that different stuff. We could play right away or we couldn't. Whatever was going to happen, I had no idea about that. You also go to a different situation, which means in my fourth year or my fifth year, whatever happens over there, I have to, again, earn the trust of everybody in that locker room, earn the trust of the coaches, which means no mishaps, no nothing like that. You have to live a very restricted life, in my opinion. You have to show you're about to work at all times, different stuff like that. And so I felt like if there was ever one mistake that I made at a transfer, who knows what could have happened from that, you know what I mean? And just understanding where I was at, and not to say like we were just out living loose, but like Hawaii was known. I just played very well. I think the coaches were not expecting me to stay, but more like, okay, this is going to be the guy going forward at least. And I was much more willing to accept that and be a part of that with somewhere I knew, the people I knew around the fans I knew and everything, then jump ship and try to be, I don't know. I think, try to look out for myself more than what I had been building over this whole time. And I feel like that was really what was going into the play of my decision, a ton of it. But yeah, when I sat down with Ganot, it was more like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I know what we have right now, and I think I need to take the year to redshirt. And we had 5 players at the end of that spring, and two of them I believe were walk-ons. And so I was like, okay, like this might be a rough go, but I'll still have those same 5 guys with me going into my senior year, or four other guys with me going into my senior year. And I need some time to recuperate, and I want to get myself better. And so like I had meetings with Acker, and we would work out nonstop all my redshirt year. And he was like turning me into a pro. Like there was not a lot of misses happening. It was my body was in probably best shape it had been in leaving, going away, and I'd gained like 10 pounds, which was crazy to me. And so I think there was just an understanding on both ends that you can't replicate that anywhere. There was a trust level that I couldn't replicate anywhere else, I don't believe. And it's not like we're not being seen. It's not like we're not on ESPN. That's all on us. We had to play through that and make sure that we were doing the best of our capabilities. So I just kind of saw it in that nature. Some people might disagree. Some people might think you have to go for yourself. I didn't see it that way. So, yeah.
Well, Mike, I mean, you guys had so many highs in that season. And of course, there were some I'm sure great moments in that locker room in the next 2 years, including your redshirt year as well. But man, one of the really gut wrenching, like just tough. One of the tougher losses that I had seen in person was your final game of your career at that Big West tournament against Irvine, who of course, who had been the thorn in the side of the program, has still been the thorn in the side of the program for, well, basically the entire Big West. They've had the run of things for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take to shake that one?
It's tough, man. Like, I think that's why, because I had really been on the fence, even finishing my career at Hawaii, about if I was going to go on or not. And I think that's what made me continue to go. If you look at that game, there was so much potential for that team going forward from that point. If you're watching the first 3/4 of it, we're up 14 the entire game, or at least from the second half on to 8 minutes left in it. And so it just hurt. I felt like that's where we were catching stride, and we just made a couple plays, and I was a part of that, man. I turned the ball over on the baseline on an inbounds play. I'll never forget that, actually. Trying to throw it to Brock too early. And yeah, it was difficult. I think it took it took success playing after. Just reaching, getting to the G League to feel like I still had something in the tank, and I still, you know what I mean, could still push past that. But that was difficult, just to end like that. And I don't know. Yeah, it was weird. It was tough.
And I mean, you and Gibson played admirably against, Irvine's bigs are always touted, right? They got the some of the best bigs in the league. And Gibson had like a career game. I think you had a pretty good game. Yeah, that was wild to me. I on the short list of just what the heck just happened experiences, that's right up there for me, just from a sports writing neutral, sideline perspective. So
Right.
I've asked Brock about that game. I all the guys who were part of it, I feel like it's an obligation of mine to ask them about, even if it's unpleasant memories. So I'm sorry about that, Mike. But
That's okay. Yeah, there's like one regret from that game. I think I had a minor injury from like weights earlier that week, and I think everybody in the situation was trying to be a little cautious about it, and I just wish I would have pushed through it and said something there. But I kind of trusted we were up to. And then I left and we came back and it was like we were trying to play catch up from that point too. And that whole situation was tough, but sorry.
Well, what of the high best memories will you kind of, the obvious ones are winning the Big West that year and going to the tournament and knocking off Cal. What maybe are some of the underrated or underappreciated things that you treasure from that whole run, that junior year of yours?
Quincy, I think career high against Cal. As somebody who I felt like people were doubting him, it just as an off ball, as a starter, different things like that. He was probably one of the toughest guys I ever met. One of the most personable guys. One of the hardest workers. Like, be in the gym at we would think we were getting work in at like 11 p.m. Quincy would show up. He'd be in there before us, leave, and then before we were about to leave, he'd come back in and go back to shooting. Type of person, and to see him just not miss, get as many steals as he wanted to, and dominate the team from his hometown. I think that put a fire in us. It put a fire in me. It was really dope to see that year, that first game in the tournament.
See him kind of free throws.
He made free throws. I think there's something a lot of people don't understand about having not like a backup, but that guy behind you at your position could be 0.02 off from being that starter when it comes to just a point differential in the coach's eyes. And that's what Cy was. Like, me and him really battled every single day. And to this day, me and him, like, have no issues with each other. There was never any disdain from that point on to now. And to see every time I got in foul trouble, every time I wasn't having the best game, Cy was in there, like, locked in and hitting shots. I think for those guys, especially as seniors too, like, that's their last go, and they want to put their best foot forward for whatever's going to happen afterwards in their careers. And Cy, he's like, he went to medical school afterwards. You know what I mean? So, like, to see that he wasn't like, oh, this is just my chill year in Hawaii for me to shoot a couple threes and get out of here and go to med school. He was like really trying to win. That was one of my favorite moments too. Like, there was never any, once we stepped on the court and we wore the same jersey, same color jersey, there was no hard feelings. There was no hate. There was no nothing. Like, I'm cheering him on as hard as I can. He's doing the same thing for me. I think that was another thing too. So just seeing those guys.
Let me ask you this, Mike, and Cy, no doubt, complimented. I think your skill set and his skill set complemented each other very well. You both gave something a little different when either of you guys are in the game.
Right.
But let me ask you this, Mike. Late in the year that year, Isaac Fleming is your usually the sixth man. The spark plug off the bench, gives you guys double digit points, steps into the starting lineups at time. Of course, there was a little bit of a rocky rapport with the coaches at times with Isaac. And late in the year, right before you guys go on your mainland run to win the Big West and go beyond, he left the team. How did you guys recover from that at that point in time?
Man, it hurt. Honestly, we had a little, not running joke, but like a saying, like this still for Isaac. Like we're still playing like he's here with us, and because he'd never touched anything like that. I think he played at Hawaii for that part of his career, and so he hadn't been to the tournament just like we hadn't been to the tournament, and so it was tough to not have him there. I think just if I'm being honest, once the lights came off for practice, once the lights came off for games, it was go time. We kind of carried this same mentality. If you watch, he's fearless. Doesn't care what time it is, what's happening in the game. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to make plays. And so we kind of tried to carry that. And that's also like that was an absence. We needed somebody like that who could constantly turn it on and flip the switch for us and stuff. And so definitely plenty of guys, including Quincy, including Cy. Rod stepped up his scoring a ton towards the end of the year, just to cover that gap and that definitely missing hole that Isaac was. But he was a brother of ours, you know what I mean? So it was difficult, but we had to keep pressing. I think there was just a lot going on, and yeah, it was tough, but yeah.
What do you remember about when you guys are practicing at Long Beach to prepare for the Big West tournament, and they do a little, a little shot across the bow that maybe ends up backfiring a little bit because it sounds like you guys got pretty fired up. Can you elaborate on what happened there, Mike?
Yeah, man. So if you win the conference outright, or if you're first place at the end of the season, you get an automatic bid to the NIT. Just for people that don't know, and they put out strictly NIT basketballs because I guess they probably host a location or have been in the NIT plenty of years, and so when we saw that, kind of took it as a slight, and then a couple of their players walked in afterwards. We're kind of grilling them down, but like a few of us kicked the balls into their stands and like just we were not, I'll say I don't care. We were not having it. And you know how tough it is. I said this on the show with Gary as well, but how tough it is to beat a team 3 times. Honestly, we love competition, but you don't want to see Irvine twice or a third time. There's too much scout. They have a lot of size, and Russ is a good coach, if I'm being real. And but we wanted that Long Beach matchup. I think it's been impossible to beat them in California for us. And just to have that game, it just felt like they were on the ropes for a majority of it. I felt like we were always in attack, confident. If you go back and watch film, like Nico is just going at his old high school teammate Bibbins, like he's like nobody was in front of him, and it was just a lot of fun to play in that game and be able to compete against them. But yeah, we definitely took that as a slight. And
I will say, Mike, I will say this, Mike, that is, I almost want to tip my cap to like I said, backfired. You guys got fired up. That's kind of like, where do you get like NIT basketballs, like at a drop of a hat like that, just for like almost that specific occasion?
For playing in NIT. I
right.
think they've for what? Probably 6 out of the last 10.
Maybe. I mean, they had a nice run there. I'll give Long Beach that, but that's I remember going to practice that day at the Pyramid to catch up with you guys, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, that is what it is. But I guess karma or whatever you want to say caught up to them. So it was a fun time beating them. I think there was some. I'll go back. I watched that game actually periodically, and there were just some moments where I think they thought that it was going to be easy to beat us just because we had trouble beating them in the past. And so, yeah.
Well, Mike Thomas, what else is coming up for you? You've been a great guest, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. Between those 3 demands, I saw you just posted something on Instagram called Bayshore Ballads and an Extended Play Collection. Can you just like maybe elaborate on your music or whatever else you feel like that's coming up in the near future for you?
Yeah, definitely on the music end, I've just been laying down the foundation, I believe, for who I want to sound like as an artist. Definitely opening the door to new artists coming in too. I have a few a spoken word artist. She's a female who's done some really good work actually recently in the studio. I'm excited for a kid named Shy Brooks, who he's about to put out a couple new projects that I've been working with. And Bayshore Ballads was just a collaboration to kind of put them a bit on the map, but it was also a little special project for my girlfriend in a sense, and just what's been going on there. But that was it's a lot of fun. It's an R&B project. I definitely want to try out different sounds. I'm experimental when it comes to stuff, but not not too outside the box. I definitely want to make it sound good. But yeah, I'm just kind of growing. I'm about to drop an album in August. Been working on it recently, just and putting together a little bit of a budget for it to reach a little more masses. So I'm excited for that stuff. Definitely the player development and performance training does not stop, and seasons will always continue to go. So excited to see where that takes me, and working with definitely new clientele all the time, and the people that have been by me since I've started as well too. But what's to come? I think it's just more work, honestly, and then seeing the fruits of that labor. I don't put too much pressure anymore on where I need to be right now and what's going on. So what happens from it will, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that stuff, man. Like I get to do what I love. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
Do you have a artist name?
Yeah, it's Moss. So it's the last 3 letters of my last name with an accent over the A. Just means more. Always go with the little subtitle, less is more, and continue to work from there. So yeah, man.
I like it.
Yeah.
And last word from you, Mike. I don't know if you caught any of it. Just as we almost started to talk, they polished off a road win at CSUN by a point,
yes,
75-74. Biwali Bayles, the freshman, banks in a go-ahead 3 with about 20 seconds left, and UH survives a few frantic attempts by the Matadors. Have you caught much of this year's team, and what do you think about their progress?
Here and there, I've been able to watch a lot of highlights. I speak with Ganot periodically. I like their heart. I actually like their talent a lot too. I like Junior, definitely Justin, and Webster, and I'm tripping on my own team, Hemsley. And I enjoy how hard they play. Honestly, I look at the rebounders. There's somebody who plays a little similar to Gib down there, Jardine.
Jardine,
yeah. I enjoy the mold. I'm watching how they play and stuff. There's certain wins where you're like, man, I wish they squeaked that out. Or there's certain teams you look at like, don't lose to them. You know what I mean? Just because I'm an alumni. But I enjoy where they're going. The culture is always going to stay right. I know that. And so I think it just comes down to a matter of experience. Like that's what helped us get to that point we wanted to get to, was just understanding that we played in the same situations the year before. And now it's time to execute and win. And so this year and next year, I think they're going to be right at the cusp, and that's where you make the change. Certain guys got to step up and just say like, "Hey, we're not losing today." And I've seen that a couple times actually this year with guys putting up certain numbers and playing a certain way at the end of the game. So I'm excited to see what comes. I know it's a weird situation, man. It's so weird to kind of evaluate basketball right now, no fans and not being able to spectate and really see game and stuff like that. But I'm excited for them, man. I'm always going to be excited for Hawaii basketball. I'm not going to leave my post. I'll be right here. That's my number one team in college. I don't watch actually any college basketball except for Hawaii. So, yeah, I'm locked in.
Well, as you said, Mike, continuity is key. They had a lot of turnover from last year for sure. I mean, starting with Drew, of course, Drew, your old teammate, going to Missouri. Real quick, were you surprised when that one happened? Because he was like the team leader last year.
Yes and no. I think Drew has had goals of wanting to play at that level. I think from when was it? Maybe before he came to Hawaii. I want to say on his visit, he was like, "Man, I'm not like this is not going to be my only stop." But he was like, "Man, I want to get to the next level." He was always talking about the next level. So I think once he started putting up good numbers and everything, I was like, "Okay, it makes sense." But yeah, how it happens. Sometimes you're like, "Oh, okay, like, I wish he could have stayed." But I mean, that's his career, and I'm always happy to see my teammates and anybody around the program do better for themselves just as much as do better for the program too, if I'm being honest. So I didn't mind it. I think there was no bad blood. That's my biggest thing is, are you burning bridges, or are you keeping everything how it should be? You know what I mean? I don't think he burned any bridges. I think the coaches still support him. I think the Hawaii family still supports him, obviously. And yeah, it's dope to see him competing out there. I mean, honestly, in the SEC as big boy basketball. And so it's been a lot of fun to watch him this year and just making plays and always keeping his eyes up for his teammates and being a leader still. And so, yeah, I've been enjoying that. But it's tough to see him leave. I definitely would have liked to see him in his career out there.
Well, Mike the Rock, as you were known during the Ganot era to end your career, thank you for being like water and navigating some questions with me for the last hour. Much appreciated.
Always, brother. Yes, sir.